Hi everyone, thank you for watching my video. I just wanted to do a quick run through of how I made it. And I wanted to say first off, thank you to Loopop for running the contest. It's been great to take part. My entry is probably a little bit different to most in that I did it on this ML1 project, which is basically my own DIY groovebox that I've been working on. So I've essentially had to build the features I needed to make my track as I went along during the contest. So I was already working on this, but like I'd been planning to do some synths. So when Loopop announced this contest, I thought it was a great idea to try putting in an entry and learn all about working with samples and sample kits, which I hadn't done so till now. What I found was the decent sampler format, which was one of the formats that the samples came in, was quite easy, really nicely documented by Dave Horowitz, and was really easy to work with. So thanks, Dave, for doing that. And so I built some simple support, just enough to be able to read the decent sampler file format and be able to make use of the samples. So what you can see here is basically, it's probably a bit hard to see on the screen, but it's quite clear to see in person. It's just a bit hard to show it on the camera. Is I've got a listing of all the samples in the top level folder, and what I can do is choose one and then make use of it. So I'll demonstrate that first with what I've called the step mode, which is what you saw at one point in the video. It was the essentially a drum machine style step sequencer that I essentially inherited from another project called Shiny Drums, which I'd use as the basis for starting this project, which actually is a web page, a web audio demo of how to use web audio in the browser. Now, this is a pretty standard 16-step drum sequencer. You can just see the drum head going. I've got the tracks muted at the moment, so I can just enable this button. These buttons I've got enabling and muting the different tracks. And so I've limited it to just 4 drum tracks at the moment. Of course, could have more, but I just hadn't had time to build in the paging functionality, so I just limited myself to just having 4. And of course, it's pretty straightforward to enable, turn them on and off, and turn all of them back on and off. And for instance, it's a bit hard to see, but some of them are different shades of green, for instance, for this row. And that's the darker ones are the accents. So holding down the shift button, I can add accents on, say, those ones. Probably a bit easier here if I just mute it. This light here shows which track is currently selected. So if I select this one, I can then say change the volume, make those much louder in comparison to, say, the drum track. And you can also edit the swing. Now the swing is actually across all the tracks, it's not just for this particular track. And I can, holding down shift, I'll turn that back off. So yeah, so that's the functionality I use to sequence the drum tracks on my piece. Now going back to what is labeled the note, I've called the note mode. Here I've got essentially a chromatic keyboard to audition notes from the different samples, and each one of these represents a track. So the first 4 are the drum tracks that you saw previously on the previous step mode. Now, and the colors match. So if I select a different one, what you can see is the color, these colors here match these colors here. So in this mode, I've treated it almost as a performance mode, even though like I'm intending to use this button later on to implement a proper performance mode. But what I was doing was, because I've still got a fairly limited amount of functionality for sequencing, I was essentially kind of playing the track as I went along. So these represent all the tracks. Again, like I can use, you probably saw me using shift and pressing them to mute and unmute them. It's a bit hard to see, but they go dim when you when muted and brighter when unmuted. So that I was like muting and unmuting the tracks while it was playing. Like the functionality in terms of like when I was creating the track is that, for instance, I can select one of the tracks and then choose one of the sample packs and audition the sounds. Oop, stop that. This lets me go up and down octaves for the keyboard. So you can go really high, really low. Now, I should also say that so far the tracks are I've just got them as monophonic, but my plan is to make them polyphonic once I have time to work on more of the functionality. So in this mode, I'm also able to, like if I try playing a note, what I can do is we can, holding down the shift, edit the offset, and also the duration, so we can make it a short duration, or very short, make it a bit longer. There you go, and we can make it fairly long, so I can get it more ringing out. And what we can also do is go back here and perhaps we'll pick a different instrument. Let's see, this one. One second. Still a few little bugs in the app, because I have to admit that I've just sort of been working away on this, like I said, as I was working on it. There we go, it's restarted. So let's just pick, say, one of these. Go, and actually select, say, put it on here. Unmute it. And let me just show you again. So can change it, make it a shorter duration, a bit longer than that. The times it's showing there are in seconds. And like I said, we could also change the start. And holding down these keys, there's all these four knobs become ADSR, so that you can change the attack, decay, sustain, and the release. So that's basically the functionality I was making use of to build the track. Now my plan is to do a lot more work with this. This is just basically all I had time to build in order to have just enough functionality to make the track. Oh, sorry, one thing I didn't show is how, like for the more melodic tracks, what I was able to do, like I had like a more of a unlimited step sequencer for them. So if I you just create a new track by Now, another piece of functionality that I wanted to show was just how I created some of the longer parts. They're longer than 16 steps. So that you can do that by pressing on pressing on an unused pad to create a new track. And then I can just choose, say, one of the instruments, say that one. We'll just make that a bit shorter so it doesn't go for quite that long for purpose of the demonstration. And so what I've got is like a step record mode that essentially will let me do unlimited numbers of steps. So it just records them as I go along. So if I go into that, it just has a starting point. So I could go now, because it's still basically quantized to every step, just like the 16-step sequence. I could just insert gaps by pressing a non-lit key. Like so. And then if I stop it and we can play it back. And it just plays back in a loop. So that's how I do the longer notes. Can also go back into record mode. I can actually step through. And thanks, that's about it.